we're just so grateful and excited to have you here today and for everybody to get to know you and experience who you are and why you're here a little bit more. So yeah, thanks for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. I can feel the amazing energy and it feels absolutely lovely and so welcoming. So thank you for that.
Yeah, one thing that Em and I were chatting about, you know, ahead of time as we were having a few minutes just to kind of connect to the space, connect to the energy, connect to the day and the community is, you know, what is our most enjoyed part of doing this, you know, this connection and this community connection, and you know, what do we find to be the most embracing and inviting about it? And I think we're both kind of just playing around with some things, but joy, right? Having fun and making it, you know, joyful and fun, and taking the serious suit and kind of like, you know, tossing it to the side and just getting curious and, you know, and participating in that casual and heart connected way. And so we were hoping that everybody was feeling that energy as we, you know, entered into the engagement.
Yeah, I do feel that. And it's so nice to have, and thank you for the two of you for creating such that community feeling where you just feel supported and supporting one another and lifting everyone up, you know, together. It's just, it couldn't be more needed at this time for everyone. So
true that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we would love if you could share a little bit, because I know that some people that are here, maybe this might be their first time getting to know you a little bit. So, and certainly there, you know, even those who will join in this as a recording would likely love to hear a little bit about your journey. I know you mentioned, you know, we mentioned in the bio, and you know, 2010, you had this really significant, you know, Kundalini sort of surge and awakening. What, you know, what of your journey do you feel, you know, in that supportive nature and wanting to, you know, kind of assist and others, you know, in the experience of your journey? What do you feel wants to be shared?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was, you know, I actually, what kind of sparked my awakening was I've always been a very lucid dreamer, and I've always had a very active role in the dream state. And it sort of piqued my curiosity when I came across some books in the Boston Library. I was living in Boston at the time, and I started practicing some of these things about going, these exercises to go out of body or to project in the astral realm from a waking state. And I did it, you know, immediately, and sort of, you know, kind of freaked me out a little bit. But I would start to have these out of body experiences without really intending for them. And, you know, so it kind of opened up my curiosity. You know, and at that time you have that insatiable appetite to get everything you can get your hands on to read when you first wake up. So, you know, I went through that whole phase, and I went through some groups where I was doing toning, and it was actually through toning that I had this Kundalini awakening, and I went through this major detox period for a month, and just everything in my life just changed. Everything fell away, and really just, you know, never looked back from that point, and just, you know, all things energy, all things, you know, working to you know, to continue to evolve. So yeah, and it was kind of, you know, and you know, back to what we were saying about the community, you know, it was for a long time, it was like this lonely kind of journey, you know, even though you talk with people and you have other people, you know, other people that are on the same path, it's not quite the same as when you have like what I'm feeling here. It's like just the support and the connection. So that is, you know, really powerful, I find, to help people with in the process. So I've just been doing energy work basically since then, for, you know, many years. So, and I have found, you know, that one of the greatest tools that I have, you know, really discovered, well, not really discovered, but more evolved into was, you know, really surrendering. And, just when you think, what surrendering means, it's like, there's a whole,
no. Wait, there's more.
Yes. Cause, we hear over and over and over, surrender, 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 but we don't really go to the depths of what that really means. And then we first of all, we think, that surrendering is, this feeling of being defeated, or that we've lost some sort of battle, we kind of associate it with war, but surrendering in that sense of just really letting go of the reins of control, can really be the most exquisite thing, quite the opposite of being defeated. And in a sense, it's surrendering to war, to the whole concept of war, so that you're at peace with yourself, that war in your mind, that war of fear, the war of control. Because as we know on this journey, the control is just simply an illusion, because life is going to flow, life is going to flow how it will. And if we surrender and we allow for that ease into our lives, we actually end up achieving more success. And ironically, by doing less, we experience.
Interesting how everything is opposite. Forget about opposite day. How about opposite existence?
Yeah. You have less stress, less frustration, because you're working with the flow, and you're getting that insight and clarity because you're working with the plan as it's unfolding, not the one in your head, right? Because we want so badly for everything to work out the way we want it to, and we fight tooth and nail to have those things be the way we want them to be. But when you're trying so hard, you're actually participating in this like fighting, pushing energy. And, surrendering is like that gentle approach to attaining the life you want, and if you're unsure of what you want, surrendering will give you that space to figure that out, without the fear and the judgment. So you're not, crowding your mind, there's no struggle, you're at peace, while you're in the process.
Yeah, I love it. And, and what I'm hearing and seeing as you're speaking are so many profound, visions and metaphors and so forth coming through. And I think, step one of surrendering, right, is like, try it on. Try it on, right? Try it on, see how it feels, because everything that we've been programmed into participating in, basically, all systems are pretty much, to your point, the opposite of that, right? Like, resistance, control, this whole swimming upstream, right? And so simply setting the intention, dropping into, okay, what would this experience be like if I just surrendered into my heart space? If I just, let go of the resistance, let go of all these stories that the thinking mind is, coming up with right now, that's telling me this is how it's going to go if I don't control it, if I don't contract. But a beautiful thing that was dropping in as you were speaking is, there's just when you thought you've, learned how to surrender, there's opportunity to surrender more. And what I feel like, what I'm also hearing in this is, there's this beautiful space within the surrender where we start to realize too, that the more and more we surrender and the more we let go of, and the more, we just allow ourselves to flow into the grace of our, of our highest blueprint and expression of authentic self here. Then we start to realize, if, to up level our, our curiosity and our participation with it, what is it like to surrender while maintaining and holding a clear intention, right? Mm-hmm. And so immediately the thinking mind starts to come in and be like, well, wait a second, how can you do both? How can you direct your consciousness into an intention? That's a matter of, control, and it's not, because when you get to a certain, place of participation and surrender, then you've let go enough of those fear programs, you've let go enough of those stories and ways of identifying with ourselves, as the thinking mind. And now you take the omnipotent combination of the two, surrender, with the clear directing into a clear intention. And it's like, watch out.
Yeah. Because, and if we don't believe that these things can happen to us, or that the things we want can come easily to us, we end up trying even harder for those things. You know, we start putting even more effort, you know, and then we're sending, like you said, the opposite energy. We're participating in the very opposite energy of what we want. And the universe is going to respond to that energy, that signal, which is, you know, ultimately fear, and responds to that by pushing you further away. So, you know, if we just notice, you know, we notice when we're trying really hard for something, and, you know, and recognizing that that's actually, you know, working against yourself. So if we just relax, stop trying so hard, and believe that the outcome is going to unfold perfectly for us, you know, then we give the space for the universe to make it happen, you know. And what I've always done, and what I still do, is I love to just connect to the energy of pure allowing. You know, when I'm in a space where I want to, make a decision, or I'm trying to feel into something, or I'm in a situation that's not really conducive to what I'm intending, you know, I just connect to the energy of allowing, and it just softens everything. It just allows everything to just fall into place in this natural way. And it's just so accepting of everything. And it's not saying, you know, like, you know, we don't take action and we don't create the life around the things we want. It's not about not taking action and being lazy. It's letting go of the doubt and the fear and worry around our beliefs, around what we're wanting to desire. Because once we let go of that fear and doubt, it's out of our hands. You know, it's in the hands of the universe. And, you know, and then we have this like less worried and a more focused approach to life. You know, we're still putting in the work, but the doubt and the fear is off our shoulders. So it's just, you know, really trusting in the world, trusting in yourself, trusting in when you do that, you send out the energy that you're ready to receive. And then you're allowing that space, you know. So when we intend for those things we want, and we believe we can have them because we can, and we surrender that belief, then we just leave it at that. And all those, you know, good things that, you know, we allow the space for them to come into our life, and they will work their way in. You know, we can almost think of surrendering as like decluttering our brain, right? Of the fears and blocks of, you know, the pathway really to everything beautiful, right? So, you know, accepting what's happening, accepting where you are, accepting, you know, it just sets you free, you know. And, you know, like we were saying, if you think you're free, you know, just wait. There's more. So it's not undermining, you know, laziness or the lack of accountability. It's involving, you know, that deep acceptance and a consistent decision to, you know, let go of the expectations of the outcomes that, you know, our mind is really holding us hostage to, you know. So like you're saying, you know, witnessing and holding the vision of what it is you want to create, you know, firmly, yet not letting your mind dictate, you know, the pathway of how you're going to arrive at that vision. You know,
yeah, I love it.
Action based. It is intention setting. It is leaning into the flow. It's deep trust. It's deep acceptance. And it's, you know, being and holding the vision that what is yours will always magnetize to you. You know, it's all encompassing. You know, it's having that courage to ask, to receive, and, you know, creating the momentum to allow it to follow through. Yeah. Holding the spaciousness, holding the lightness, even in the midst of, you know, great uncertainty, because that's what's going to give you the clarity. You know, it's the opposite. It's like when you let it go, then you get to see, then you have the opportunity
yeah,
to see the situations. You know, you see facing, you know, you can see things from facing from the outside rather than being in the midst, in the thick of things. You know, you surrendering gives you that chance to stand back and view the situation you get clarity, you get that intuition, you know, and you gain that clarity right there in that moment. You know, things just happen so much more efficiently, and, you know, you just move through life with such a stronger foundation. And ultimately it's really remembering how we create with the universe, you know, and our relationship, because we have this powerful gift of free will that dictates and permeates our reality more than we can really comprehend. And that gift, you know, we're constantly choosing, are we going to, you know, wield it out of fear or love and trust, you know, because every choice is an invitation to a new course of reality, a new set of energies. And, you know, one's not really better than the other, and there's no right or wrong. And that's the beauty of being human. You know, it's the nature of how we evolve our consciousness, you know. So when we really allow ourselves to understand that relationship, we can attune more into true surrender. And that just really just opens everything up to the joy and the peace that we're all searching for. You know, it's the prerequisite of navigating through this journey and expanding your own wisdom center. And like you said, not taking ourselves so seriously.
Yeah, it's true. Because there's actually, when we set forth the intention of surrender, you know, and we come into the moment, right? Into the present moment, right? And that's, I feel like, a key ingredient in it too. And I know we've just, all three of us have shared and discussed this, you know, multiple times in different ways, right? It's like dropping into the present moment, right? Dropping into the present moment, taking a breath, setting the intention of surrender. And what takes place instantaneously is, you know, there is a layer just in the word surrender, just in the intention of surrender. There's a dropping out of the thinking mind and a landing in the heart. And it was interesting because as you were sharing, so many things were being, so much energy, you know, this pure source energy coming through. And, you know, and you were moving your hands a lot. I don't even know if you were witnessing it. And it was like you were showing everybody on a sort of unspoken level, you know, come to the heart center, come to the heart center, because that's exactly what takes place, right? You know, it's from that place, right? It's like you come out of the thinking mind, mind, the way it's been, you know, distorted and so forth, and kind of, you know, taken hostage by the mental matrices and mind cloud, if you will. You know, it doesn't have it written in its codes, surrender, right? Because the nature of it is the polarity of that, right? It's like no, control, analyze, control, compartmentalize, control, right? So surrender is a direct, you know, navigational tool to drop into the wisdom center, the intuitive center, the feeling center, the emotional, you know, epicenter, right? Our existence. So I love that. And I'm sure we all have some recent stories that we could share, you know, to our own experience with, you know, the profound alchemy that takes place through the surrender. What are some ways in which, you know, as you're working with groups and individuals and so forth, you know, how, you know, for someone who is just, you know, chosen, you know, through the beautiful blueprint of their life thus far, to really engage in like heavy doses, you know, and expressions of the thinking mind, and they really find themselves like I'm sorry, I still just can't understand what you mean by surrender. Like, what are some basic ways in which, you know, you can drop in to that?
Well, you know, it's funny because people don't really like surrendering to their unpleasant nows, you know, the now moment that's not so comfortable, you know, because we think that, you know, we tend to think that the now moment is the only now moment, and that moment's going to continue, right? And of course that's not the case, you know, but it's when we resist it, that's what causes it to remain there. You know, it's actually waiting for our embrace. You know, it's waiting to come home. So it's really meeting it right in that moment. And it's so important that we don't resist or try to get out of the now moment, you know, that we're in, you know. So it's balancing between the now moment that you're in, that you don't want to be in, that's, you know, so uncomfortable, and the next now moment that's already there that you can't reach or feel or be in yet. So it's that dance of, you know, allowing yourself compassion and love while holding space in that moment, knowing that beyond all of it, you're whole, you're completely whole. So when you let go of trying to control and trying to get out of that moment that you don't like, when you let go of that, there's this absolute flow. It's almost like a dam erupts, and it's the opposite of what we've been programmed to how we've been programmed to live. You know, we've been programmed to, you know, fix, to change, to get out of, you know, to be comfortable, not uncomfortable, to control and not be out of control. And, you know, the way we're actually designed, as multidimensional humans, is in a complete and utter state of surrender, trust, and openness and expansion. And it's allowing that even in those moments where it's not how you would like it to be, because that's when the floodgates open. That's when the magic happens. So it's having that faith and trust that allows the magic to happen. Because when you have that faith, then this moment becomes far more enjoyable. It becomes so much of an easier moment to maneuver through. And then it's easy to see, well, it's actually the resistance to the moment that causes the suffering. And the way we most naturally allow for that experience to pass through us is, okay, I'm absolutely okay. Everything is transient. And that's the opening. That's where you surrender. And then when you surrender into that, you realize, oh, well, there was nothing really wrong here anyway, and that just becomes the continual practice, of course, until it's no longer a practice and it becomes your way of being.
I love it. So
yeah. Yeah. So it's a difference of wanting to change something and this belief that you're going to be happier or better off in some way if things were different, into practicing just loving things as they are, because you will always, always find a greater sense of fulfillment and joy and peace in the second approach of, I'm going to practice loving and being okay with right now. And that's really when things really start to shift. And then you realize, oh, this is how my state of being, this is actually the natural way to be. Yeah.
Beautifully said. And, and two, in the surrendering into the embracing, right, of what exists as, within our field is what I hear you saying, like in the embracing of it and the curiosity and the witnessing of it, and the responding to it differently than we have previously, which often is contracting, shoving it down. I don't want to be this way. I don't want to feel this way. I judge myself. I don't accept that part of me, right? When we were like, okay, what would it be like if, to your point, we just sat with it, we were present with it, we bring it in, holding the intention, of, okay, I want to embody the highest expression of consciousness, capable of taking place, right? What if that was our intention? In the being with it, we are able to integrate it and to release, whatever layers and levels of it are no longer serving us, right? So ultimately, in the embracing of it, there is alchemy that takes place. There is change that takes place, but it's not, not in the way of efforting. And I feel like it was so cool as you were speaking, there was this whole column of like light, like I was seeing like a person like in the light body diagram, and, in this column, kind of dropping into the heart center, dropping into the presence, engaging in this place of just witnessing presence, embracing and surrendering. And it was like everything you were bringing in, it was like, okay, it was like witnessing this being, like, exploring it from this, kind of center point, right? Exploring it, looking at, okay, let me bring a little bit more surrender in. Okay, now I can see even more clearly. And it was like exploring it, moving through it, feeling into it. Okay, wait, let me bring a little more, surrender into it. So it was this beautiful expression unfolding as you were speaking. And hopefully, I know everybody is feeling it in their own unique way. And I just, I feel like, to your point and kind of opening expression, it's like never more has there been a time when this foundational building block of greater self-realization is being called forth, right? Yes. Surrender it. And I know one of the things that you're so beautifully and gracefully bringing forth in way of assistance to others is to help them to really come into a greater sense of embodiment and attunement and comfortability with honing in on their, their inner navigational system, right? Their inner compass and their ability to trust in their inner guidance. And so often, people I know come to you specifically to kind of finally attune themselves as whatever level and layer of channel that they are here, right? Because everybody's a channel. And,
exactly. We all have a channel. Like,
we all have a channel.
And
it's just figuring out what is, specific and what is unique to my own, instrument here. So I know so much of what we've brought in already and sharing about surrender is sort of that foundation of even diving into that next level of awareness, right? Yeah. How in this particular moment in time, how can you, how do you explore that with people? How do you open that up further, even beyond the surrender?
Right. Yeah, because surrendering is the foundation to really open yourself up to receive, right? So when you really want to start establishing your connection with your higher self and listening and really growing your own guidance system, so to speak, and hearing your higher self or your guides, or how, whatever you want to call it. Well, I find it to be one of the most comforting and nourishing practices, because when I started receiving messages, and for me, in my case, it came in as actual words from my higher self and guides, it's literally like having this warm blanket with you everywhere you go, so it's like, no matter what you're doing or where you are, that everything is accessible to you. So it just helps you move through your journey with so much more joy. And, but first, one of the primary things is you really first have to believe that you can do it. Like you have to believe that your higher self is always actually speaking to you. You have to first accept that voice lives within you. Because if you don't, you won't be able to hear it, and you have to really believe it 100%. And what often we do, and what often I see, is we want to believe it, like we really want to believe it, but we get so impatient, and we may not believe it 100% yet, but we try to skip to having it, to having this connection and receiving the direct messages, and that can lead to frustration. So, once you have that 100% knowingness and believing it as your truth, and that applies to anything, right? Like whatever it is, whatever you're intending, once it's embodied 100%, it cannot be taken away from you. It's no longer a need or a want. It's now your reality. And you have that knowingness that you have it. So if you think about like with your higher self or with your guides, and you're wanting to establish that navigational system, it's knowing that my connection is there, and my higher self is always communicating with me. My guides are always communicating with me, and it's trusting, trusting in yourself. And you can cultivate, hearing that direct message actually speak to you. But for most people, and it, like you're saying, it's different for everyone. Everyone has their own unique way. But for most people, it's in general, it's like a direction. It's simply, directs you and simply your higher self is going to bring you the experiences you need. And then you are allowed to choose whether you're going to respond to that from that place of love or fear. Mm-hmm. So your higher self is speaking to you, but it's speaking to you from within. It's speaking to you from your true nature. It's actually speaking to itself, because you're already that which you're seeking. So the higher self isn't going to say, hey, you should do this or you should do that. Whether it's, you'll feel yourself come out of alignment when you engage in something that's not based in love, or something that's not based in alignment with your true essence.
I love that.
Yeah. So it becomes a matter of shifting your perception. It's because when we perceive reality in a way that's distorted, you're pulling yourself out of alignment with your higher self. And that's what we interpret and we feel as suffering, is when we're not in alignment. So your higher self is speaking to you, not in a way to correct you, because, your very essence is pure, peace, love, and joy. So whenever anything is, disturbing that state of being, then the higher self is pointing out that your perception is off in some way. And then it becomes very simple, because whenever you're disturbed, you ask, if you ask, you shall receive, show me where my perception is off, and that's how you hone, that ability to hear the voice of truth, is simply acknowledging that your perception is, maybe flawed, and be open to being shown, because it's that humility that brings in that grace of inner knowing, and whenever there's willingness to be shown, your higher self is going to bring it, and then it's just applying it to your life, applying it to every challenging life experience, turning them into the catalyst, because most of us are going through life completely unaware, and we're just sort of, bumping into our life experiences and circumstances, unaware of the immense opportunity that's there. So, we're constantly being taught, we're constantly being shown, our life is basically our expression, we are our life. We're not separate from it. So there's nothing else out there that's going to offer you the level of growth than your own life experience. And when you become open to that, you start to see all these opportunities everywhere. And then you start to see that, everything you experience in life is serving you, it is serving your highest good. And then you stop resisting and you just start learning from them now. And when you accept that, life, you realize life is happening for you, not to you. And it just becomes this immense teacher. And you realize that your higher self is everywhere, and of course, not asking for, why is this happening to me? Because that's, would be bypassing, but with just genuine curiosity, and because when you have that desire to transcend something, you're going to be given every opportunity to see that lesson and go beyond it. And once you begin to ask, the answers come. Your unconscious beliefs will be continuously triggered through your life experiences until they're brought to the surface to be witnessed. So whenever
they will.
Yeah. So whenever that unpleasant experience happens, you ask, make use of the suffering. We can overcome lifetimes of suffering by facing it right here and now. And when you realize that what's in front of you is the way to that, your higher voice will come alive and point to the truth and just, start to sing.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
true. So much gold there. The truth shall set you free. There is absolutely zero, distortion in that, right? Because what is the truth? Well, there's layers of truth, and the truth can only be determined, by our own felt sense of resonance with what truth is. And every time we up-level our consciousness by releasing a belief system or an entanglement, of an old pattern that no longer serves us in the full essence of our divinity, then we've now up-leveled our plane of consciousness, and truth expands to, to greater and greater heights of sort of divine order and clarity, right? So it's like, get curious, get in there. What is the truth of this? And one of the things that I love that you brought through is, the why in it, right? It's like the why. However, the why is super profound and purposeful and juicy with like goods, right? When we participate in the why from the perspective and identification with ourselves as source, right? As the witnessing presence, as the, witnessing presence of this human experience, right? Free of any identification as the victim, the victimizer, or any other role, right? So if we can participate from that place of dropping into surrender, into the neutral point, into the heart space. Okay, I'm the witnessing presence. I'm getting curious here. I'm curious with the why have I chosen consciously and unconsciously, right, to participate in this? When we get curious with the why in that way, we receive so many, so many avenues of greater self-realization. But what you had brought through, I think, and which is equally as profound an awareness, is when we participate in the why, like, why is this happening to me? And why is it so hard? And why is it from a place to suggest that everything in our external reality is taking place, and we have zero participation in our creation of reality, then we're still in this sea of chaos, and and we're allowing ourselves to be taken into all different directions that lead us further away from the clarity of it. So I just, that kind of popped in a big way, and I love that you kind of landed there. In this too.
You have to be willing. You have to be willing to see. You have to be willing to be corrected.
Which
be stubborn.
Right, and we're so good at being stubborn.
Because
it's been a very very helpful tool of survival. In this matrices of survival, of fight or flight. And as we well know, we're like peeling off the layers of all of that distortion, right? Of all of this, the system of reaction and fear, right? And coming back into the home frequencies of love and unification. And so yes, resistance creates more resistance, creates more resistance.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I love what you said about the confusion, because that, that's often, we get confused when we're in that chaos, right? Because we can't discern, we're feeling the feelings, and we're feeling emotions, and we're having thoughts, and we can't differentiate between the two. So it's like really discerning, and establishing like a strong foundation in your like emotional intelligence is like a huge, pillar of foundation for the spiritual journey. I find is really distinguishing between your emotions and your feelings, because that's going to give you greater discernment, greater clarity, because in order to discern, you have to feel, without getting that confusion that happens, between our thoughts, emotions, and so forth. So that's another piece that is, I find very, very important.
Yeah. And I love that you bring that in, because I feel like it very much ties into the surrender. It ties into how do we know that we're communicating with our higher self? It's our physical body, our emotional body, our mental body, and our spirit bodies are constantly communicating, in frequency surges, from our higher self and oversoul. And so in any given moment, ask a question and see what shows up in the physical body's response, the emotional body's response, the mental body's response, right? If immediately, a stream of self-limiting beliefs pour in, it's like, oh, okay. And also too, if it's something where you're like, okay, am I meant to go, left, or am I meant to go right? What is your immediate felt sense of it, right? And so how many times do we hear ourselves and others throughout the day in communication say, I knew it. Yeah. Something told me something. Well, that something, my friends, is your higher self.
Yeah. And tuning in to like knowing when that's a feeling and when that's, your ego coming in, or your mind, the analytical mind coming in. So that's why it's so important to remember how to feel. We've forgotten how to feel, and it's interesting because having awareness of your emotional body, it's such a starting point for learning how to feel things, because if you had to sum up, in one word, how to raise your vibration, it would be feel. Just feel, just feel everything, because when there's a lack of clarity around your emotions, you get confused. And so it's important to know the difference between feeling and an emotion, because they're not always one and the same. That the emotional body is like, it's sort of like the densest to the physical body. You have these layers in your field, the physical, the etheric, the emotional, mental, celestial, cosmic, and so on. And they get subtler and subtler. And the emotional body's like that bridge, between the mental and the physical. It's the bridge between the physical self and the thinking self. And it's that body that interprets and translates your thoughts into feeling states. So it's actually that translation that allows us to actually experience our thoughts. We're able to actualize our thoughts instead of them remaining abstract. So it in that in turn, as humans, enables us to learn and gain awareness better and faster, and allows us to, have personal and universal expansion. So it's because of the emotional body we're actually able to experience our thoughts. But what we tend to do is we get caught up in letting the emotions rule our way of thinking, in sort of this backwards looping pattern, right? Because our thoughts are converted into these feeling impressions, and then the physical body interprets these impressions as if translating a message, and converts them into brain activity, hormones. And that causes a physical reaction in our body that we call emotions, and so we often feel these emotions, and without realizing that it's our own thoughts and perception that was the source, not the other way around, and like you're saying, we can even fall victim to our emotions, not realizing that they're coming from our own thought patterns, right? Yeah. So, yeah. And yeah, it's fascinating, because feeling feeling is not only about emotion. You can feel outside of your body, right? If you think about feeling, like you can feel if there's someone in the room behind you, or you can feel when there's presence in the room, but emotions are in the body. They're that physiological experience of a feeling. It's almost like a reaction to the feeling. It's that combination of sensation and perception. So it's involving that the mental body. You're connecting the three bodies together. So like really understanding the difference, because when you're having that emotional reaction to something, clearly your past trauma is coming in because the mental body's involved. So when you're sitting and being within sensation, allowing ourselves to take our attention off the mental body or off the messenger or event or person or thing, we step back, and it allows us to actually feel in the moment, and actually allows us to recognize what deep unresolved past wound needs to be unhealed, or, and that's continuing to mirror itself in our lives. So just being in that space and of feeling and surrendering, without the mental body, it allows us to really clear. So then, when you clear that, you're actually able to feel and make decisions in the moment. You can see your perceptions, you can see how you're creating the emotion, and then you get more in tune with the feeling. Because once you establish that emotional intelligence, you have a steady foundation of discerning your emotions, and you can focus more. You can put your attention on the feeling of what you're feeling now and recognize it. And then you can, that allows you to choose what's best in the moment for you. It allows you to see clearly, to have the intuition, the insight in the moment, based on what you're experiencing in that moment, and not based on the past or, the future. So really bringing yourself into more presence and freedom by just learning how to feel again.
Yeah, I love that. And what I'm hearing in that too is like one way to navigate through that, right? Because I feel like what I'm hearing collectively in our community is like, well, how, and the how I feel like is, to your point, being in the present moment and being the neutral witnessing observer, right? Mm-hmm. So instead of immediately having the feeling and then engaging the thinking mind to find something within your field of coordinates that's taken place, as you mentioned, right, in the past or in a, and trying to then immediately identify it as that and create a story and create this whole illusion that that's taking place in this now moment, right? And putting all the systems, the physical, mental, emotional, and spirit body into a state of fight or flight or response that it's familiar with from that previous timeline brought in. Stay in the present moment, stay as the neutral and witnessing observer. Just have a curiosity. What is this that I'm feeling? And what thought provoked this feeling? And now what is taking place and being, triggered within my emotional body field, right? So, just kind of like another sort of way of entering into the engagement is, I mean, it always comes back to the present moment, to the witnessing presence, and to, and holding whatever framework of neutrality, I feel like, which is, some people are like, neutrality, that's burying your head in the sand or being complacent or saying like, I'm not choosing, which is actually, can be further than the truth, right? Because neutrality is getting to this place of, okay, I am source, I am the everything and the nothing. I am all potentials within existence, in this now moment expressed, right? So it's like letting go of there being a finite this or that and allowing ourselves to just hang out in this space of where everything exists. And we're the witnessing observer of that. And we're allowing ourselves to just be curious with with all the things that are, with all the things that are, that are coming up, right? That are coming up. And it's like, so then we remain malleable. Then we remain in this place of, okay, how am I choosing to respond differently this time around? I'm choosing to respond differently because now I'm not identifying as the emotion, as the feeling, as the thought. I'm identifying as the witnessing presence, watching all that's being orchestrated here based on all the conscious and unconscious decisions that I've made throughout all space and time that are now relevant within my unique hologram that exists here in this moment, right? So it's like, I love that. I love that you bring that in to explore more and to, because I feel like what it really does is begins to unravel in such a greater way, like the whole system of what's taking place with us within these bodies, right? More dense and more subtle.
Yeah. And when you're paying attention, as you're saying, that's when all the insight comes. That's when you learn. That's when you gain the clarity of, am I creating this thought? Where's this coming from? The whys, all of that starts to drop in when you allow yourself to surrender and stand back as that witness.
Yeah. And let's add one more ingredient into this, self-realization soup here, right? Which is non-judgment, right?
Yeah.
Because what do we love to do with ourselves? We love to be like, oh, there you are again, doing the same thing again, right? Yeah. And that immediately
brings in the mental body, which creates emotion
and creates reaction. Creates the lockdown, and then there's more chaos, right? And then there's more interfacing this present moment, right? Now we've taken ourselves out of this infinite field of potential that exists in the 0 point, in the neutral point, and we've purposely, through our judgment programming, which is essentially fear, right, have now tethered ourselves into a much more finite system of potential of how to navigate through and to create alchemy, right? So let go of the judgment. It's the most glorious and freeing intention and level of participation.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's like,
I love you. I love you. I love me. So yeah, do we want to just kind of take a little glance at some of the comments and things that are coming through? Okay, perfect. There's so much nourishing insight and feedback, just really speaking to gratitude for all that you've brought forth today in way of expression and further unfolding and exploration. I'm sure one thing that people that are gathered here would love to know is, how do they get in touch with you? What types of ways can they further engage with the bounty of wisdom and quantum healing that you do?
Yeah, well, I do have a podcast called theopenchannel.com or the Open Channel, but you can reach it at openchannel.com. And my website is creatoressence.com. I will be having a upcoming series on what we're kind of talking about, surrendering into the deeper communication with yourself and expanding your intuitive wisdom center and your inner guidance and so forth. And I also do sessions, private sessions, which involve, whatever is appropriate for the moment. So yeah, that's basically how I can be contacted.
Yeah, beautiful. And, and for those who have experienced Avalina's one-on-ones know how profound and expansive and, evolutionary those experiences can be, and opening up gateways and portals to your higher potential, and, and in such a graceful way too, in a practical way. So we definitely recommend, if you're feeling in resonance with that, going deeper into your engagement with her. Any sort of parting words or things that you feel, are wanting to come through in this moment?
Well, kind of based on what we've been talking about, I feel like, really acknowledging that, whatever's occurring in your life and wherever you're at, that is in essence the path that you've chosen to give yourself the most potential to shift. And that's always the case. The situation you're in is always the highest and best for yourself to shift into a higher state of awareness and expansion. So, just really honoring everything that you're experiencing, everything that you're going through in the moment, because that's your gift. That's your greatest gift, is that right there. So, and just laughing at yourself, you know, letting go of the seriousness, and just, you know, sometimes you just got to throw your hands up and just.
Heck yeah, I do it all day long. I mean, it is some powerful and omnipotent medicine, I will tell you that. And not laughing in a sense of judgment, but laughing in a sense of, you know, which brings forth the greater awareness of just how funny this video game of human existence, you know, truly is, right? It's like, oh, there you are again.
Yeah, and we can have fun in it if we choose. You know,
exactly.
We have to allow ourselves to do that, you know, to go through the challenges and hold joy at the same time.
Yeah. Well, I'm certain, based on the beautiful sharings and supportive and loving comments that have been brought forth by this community of light, that everybody is just thrilled to have had the opportunity, as I know Em and I are, to have you here and to feel the presence of Source within. And so thank you. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for your grace. Thank you for your presence here. We look forward to having you again to connect and co-create some more. And we sure are thankful for all that have gathered here and connecting with us today. Wishing you all a beautiful and blessed weekend ahead. And until we meet next time.
Thank you so much.